Mantras of our Divine Mother. Our Divine Mother says, we pray the Divine to accept the ardent flame of our gratitude and of our joyous and fully confident adherence. With my love and blessings, says our Divine Mother. Words of our Divine Mother, taken from the collective works of our Divine Mother, other editions, Question and Answers, Volume 7, date April 1962, page 1. Question, Sweet Mother, Sri Aurobindo writes, the Supreme has laid his luminous hand upon a chosen human vessel of his miraculous light and power and ananda in Synthesis of Yoga in page 100. For this our Divine Mother says, it is as you like. One does not know who has begun, but the two happen generally at the same time. If you want an order of priority, it is evident that the Divine exists before the individual, then it is the Divine who must have chosen the first time. But it is a choice made before the terrestrial fifth. In the order of the ordinary human consciousness, it can be either the one or the other or both at the same time. In fact, it is probable that it is the Divine who perceives at first that this one or that one is ready. But one who is ready generally begins by not knowing it, so he has the impression that it is he who chooses and decides, but that must be an impression rather than a reality. But once you are chosen, it is irresistible. You cannot escape even if you try, says our Divine Mother. Question, Sweet Mother, the being is chosen by the Divine. Can he understand it from his very birth? For this, our Divine Mother says, even before his birth. Perhaps his birth is the result of his choice. It is like that generally. But it happens at any time of one's life. For who are predestined, it is before the birth. Generally, they have come upon earth with a purpose for a fixed goal. You would like very much to know if it so happened in your case, isn't it? And our Divine Mother laughs. Question, Sweet Mother, does the Divine choose only one individual to manifest himself, or can he choose several? For this, our Divine Mother says he chooses several. But here also there is a hierarchy. You can understand nothing of the spiritual life if you do not understand true hierarchy. Now it is not the fashion. In human thinking, it is a thing which does not find favor at all. But from the spiritual point of view, it is something automatic, spontaneous, undisputable. So, if the hierarchy is true, there is a place for everybody and for each individual. At the place where he is, his individual truth is absolute. That is to say, each element that is truly in its place has a total and perfect relation with the Divine in its place. And yet, taken as a whole, there is a hierarchy which is also quite absolute. But to understand the spiritual life, you must understand that first, and it is not very easy. Everyone can be a perfect expression of the Divine in himself on condition that he knows his place and keeps to it. Question. And if they do not know the hierarchy? For this, our Divine Mother says, but they do not know that they form a hierarchy. It is not necessary to know it. It is only when you want to organize physically a spiritual society that you have to materialize the hierarchy. But generally, in the world as it is, there are so many gaps in this hierarchy that it looks like a confusion. The perfect hierarchy is an all inclusive hierarchy. It cares neither for time nor for space. But when you want to realize it physically, it becomes very difficult. It is like a piece of cloth to be woven with good many holes everywhere. The holes upset the general harmony. Always people are missing, levels are missing, pawns are missing on the chessboard, things are missing. So it looks like a confusion. But if the whole thing were expressed and each thing were in its place, then it would be a perfect harmony and a perfect hierarchy. There is something not in the material universe, but in the manifested universe, the perfect hierarchy that exists, but it is not yet manifested upon earth. Perhaps that will be one of the results of the supramental transformation. The world will be ready for a perfect, spontaneous, essentially true hierarchical manifestation without coercion of any kind, in which everyone will have the consciousness of his own perfection. For this, the child says, what is exactly spiritual hierarchy? Because when one speaks of hierarchy, it implies an order with a higher and lower elements. For this, our Divine Mother says, yes, but it is quite wrong. That is to say, materially it is like that, but it is not that what I call a hierarchy. What then is a hierarchy? Our Divine Mother says, it is the organization of the functions and manifestation in action of everyone's own nature. Sometimes comparisons are attempted and were attempted, but they are worth nothing because none of the things we know physically can answer to that condition. There is always, as you say, the sense of superiority and inferiority. Hierarchy has been compared to the various functions of the body, for example, but that always gives the impression that the head is above and the feet is below. That is embarrassing. Question, sweet mother. Each element is the whole divine at the same time. Then how can one speak of hierarchy? A divine mother says each element has a direct and perfect relation with the divine. Question, but can't they become the whole divine? For this, our divine mother smiles and says, yes, all become the divine, but not the whole divine, because the divine is in all. You cannot take a bit of the divine and say, this is the divine. And yet, everyone in his spiritual consciousness has a perfect relation with the divine. That is to say, everyone is the divine as perfectly as he can be. But to rebuild the divine, the whole divine is necessary. And that is exactly what constitutes the very essence of hierarchy. But as everyone is perfect in himself, there can be no feeling of inferiority or superiority. I do not think human mentality can understand that. I think one must live it, and once you have lived it, it is a very simple, it appears luminously simple. But to understand that with the mind is not possible. It seems impossible, especially because the mind, in order to understand anything, has to divide everything, put everything in opposition, otherwise, it does not understand. It is in a confusion. Because of its very function, it makes itself incapable of understanding. Question, sweet mother. How can one say that a thing is already done when it is not yet manifested? For example, that the divine has chosen an instrument when nothing is as yet apparent? For this, our divine mother says, yes, within in the world that is not yet manifested, there is the decision. It is done there. Only it must come out on the surface. It is exactly the individual equivalent of what I told you several times in connection with the freedom of India. When I had gone to a certain plain, I told Sri Aurobindo India is free. I did not tell him India will be free. I told him India is free. Well, between that moment, when it was accomplished fact, when at that moment it was an accomplished fact, and the moment when it was translated in the material world upon earth, how many years were needed? It was in 1915 and the liberation came in 1947. That is to say 32 years. That is the exact image of resistance. For the individual, it is the same thing. It takes sometimes the same length of time, sometimes it goes quicker. Question, sweet mother, you say that you saw India free? For this, our divine mother says, no, I did not see, I knew. Question, when you said to Sri Aurobindo, India is free, was India wholly free? For this, our Divine Mother says, I had meant what happened in 1947, that is to say, the foreign domination was withdrawn. That's all, nothing else than that. Not her moral or spiritual freedom. I did not speak of that at all. I said simply that she was liberated from the foreign domination. And even I answered to a question put by Sri Aurobindo, there will be no violence, it will be done without a revolution. It is the British people who of themselves will decide to go away, for the place will become untenable for them because of the certain circumstances upon the earth. So the whole matter, there was no spiritual question there. Things happened that way. I told Sri Aurobindo in 1915 exactly. It was all there. It was there. I guessed nothing, prophesied nothing. It was a fact. This given gives you an image of the time that is needed between the established fact and the outer realization. For the individual also, it is the same thing. He is chosen. He was chosen. He has chosen the divine and he is chosen. It is a thing decided and it will be realized infallibly. One cannot escape even if one wanted, only it may take a long time. In page 12, the child asks the mother, Sweet mother, Sri Aurobindo writes, as long as we live in the ignorant seeming, we are the ego and are subject to the modes of nature. It is slaved to appearances, bound to dualities, tossed between good and evil, sin and virtue, grief and joy, pain and pleasure, good fortune and ill fortune, success and failure. We follow helplessly the iron or guild, the iron round of the wheel of Maya in the book Synthesis of Yoga in page 108. For this, our Divine Mother says, yes, there are people who have a happy and comfortable life, and there are others who have a miserable life. It depends upon the individual destiny. It depends perhaps on what they have to do upon earth, upon the stage where they are. It depends upon many things. It is quite evident that it is not they themselves who choose, because the majority of people would choose always the same thing. If they were asked what they wanted, there would be differences but not very great. It would be quite monotonous. The majority of people would like to be what they call quiet, what they call peaceful, have a small organization suited to their dimension, which is generally microscopic, which consists in a living, a regular routine activities almost always identical within an almost identical frame in an almost identical surrounding that repeats without too great a difference, with a sufficient variety so that it does not become irksome, but nothing would upset the regular circle which makes what is called a peaceful life. For the immense majority of people, that is the ideal. And then the realization of the details of this ideal depends exclusively on the country in which one is born, the society in which one is born, the customs of one's environment. They have the ideal fashioned by the habits of the country or society in which they live. Evidently, there are exceptions, but they only prove the rule. In a general way, the widest ideal is to be born in a sufficiently comfortable surrounding in order not to have too many difficulties in life, to marry a person who would not give you too much trouble, to have children who are healthy and grow normally, and then a quiet and happy old age, and also not to fall ill too much in order not to have trouble, and then to depart when one is tired of life, also again because one would not like to have to take trouble. Our Divine Mother says at bottom, it is the most widely spread idea. Naturally, there are exceptions. You find the very contrary. Otherwise, the life as men conceive it would be sufficiently monotonous. The difference would come in the details because in one country one prefers one thing and in another thing. And then in the society in which one is born, you have certain habits, an ideal of happiness, and in another society, you have other habits and another ideal of happiness. That's all. If one speaks to the Europeans, for example, they tell you that there is nothing more beautiful than Europe. I know Frenchmen, not one but hundreds, who said there were nowhere in the world more beautiful women than French women. I knew a Negro who had all his education in France and who, when asked where the most beautiful women, he answered, none were beautiful than the Negro women. It was quite natural, isn't it? Well, it is like that. No house is more beautiful than the one in which one has been accustomed to five. The houses of the country where you live, where you're born, and the landscape. It is the same. The food, it is the same. The habits, it's the same. Provided it passes in a sufficiently harmonious way without any violent blows, you are perfectly satisfied. That is the general mentality. You turn around, and sometimes it's an iron circle, sometimes it is a circle of gold, but you turn around and round and round, and your children also will turn round and round, and your grandchildren will also turn round, and that will continue. There you are. In page 21, question: Sweet Mother, how can one understand the divine? For this, our Divine Mother says, by becoming Him, my child, that's the only way, by identity. If one did not carry Him in oneself, Sri Aurobindo says one would never be able to understand Him. It is because He is the very essence of our being that we are able to become Him and therefore understand Him, otherwise, it would be quite impossible. Question, Sweet Mother, how can we find the divine within ourselves? For this, our Divine Mother says, it is just what I said. First of all, you must set about looking for Him, as it is the most important thing in your life. Then the will must be constant, the aspiration constant, the preoccupation constant, and this must be the only thing that you want. Then you will find and feel and see Him. Naturally, if you think of it only 5 minutes in your life and be busy with other things for 3/4 of an hour, there's hardly any chance of success. In any case, many lives will be needed. It must not be a pastime. It must be the exclusive occupation of your being, the very reason of your existence, says our Divine Mother. Question. Sweet Mother, all the timeless presses towards the play in time, all in time turns upon and round the timeless spirit, as stated by Sri Aurobindo in Synthesis of Yoga, page 137. Why? For this, our Divine Mother says, because it is like that, my child. All that is not manifested wants to be manifested, and all that is manifested tries to return to its origin. It is as if you ask me, why is the earth round? Why are there the sun and the planets? It's like that. The law of the universe is like that. Most of these things are simply statements of facts, but there are no explanations because you cannot give a mental explanation. You can give it, but each thing that you want to explain is explained by another, which must again be explained by another, which in its turns must be explained yet another, and so indefinitely. You can go around the universe, each thing explaining another thing, but explains nothing. The one thing that one can do is to say it is like that. That is why it is said that the mind can know nothing. It can know nothing because it needs explanations. And an explanation has a value only to the extent it gives you the power to act upon the thing which is explained. Otherwise, what is the use of it? Question. Sweet Mother, how can one increase one's understanding? For this, our Divine Mother says, understanding? Well, it is by increasing the consciousness, by going beyond the mind, by widening one's consciousness, by deepening one's consciousness, by coming in contact with regions above the mind. Later on, at the time of the publication of this talk, our Divine Mother added the following commentary. Our Divine Mother says, I would add one new thing. It is experience. Change the knowledge into experience, and experience leads you automatically to another experience. But by experience, I mean quite a different thing from what it is usually taken to mean. It is not experiencing the thing that one knows, that is, of course, understood. But instead of knowing and understanding, even a knowledge much higher than the mental knowledge, even a most integral knowledge, to become the power that causes it to be. People always say at the beginning of the manifestation, there is Sachidananda. When you are there, you have the sense of a tremendous power, the universal power. You have the sense of the total mastery of the universe, says our Divine Mother.